What's up, guys? Welcome to the Ray Class Roadhouse. The name's Dalton. Today we have patch 0.1.1, and I'm just going to be kind of going over quickly the 10 biggest changes that I think are in the patch notes that'll impact most people. So let's get into it. First off, we have 4 brand new tower maps: Alpine Ridge, Bluff, Mesa, and Sinking Spire, as well as the original tower map has been reworked to be a lot more open and no more walking through narrow corridors into areas with a roof that you can't see under. So hopefully that'll be a lot better, add a lot more variety. Unfortunately, I don't think they didn't make any changes to mechanics being able to spawn on these maps, so they still might be a toss in T1 and get it over with kind of thing. We'll have to see how that ends up, but overall, great change. Alright, now boss portals. So we are getting 6 portals for the Arbiter of Ash. This is going to help drastically. As you increase the difficulty through the Atlas passives, you're going to get less attempts, making it more and more challenging. This is going to help a lot of new players. They're wanting to add this to all of the in-game bosses. This hopefully will help alleviate the problems where some people just get in-game boss invites, and a lot of the times they're just wanting to immediately sell it because, you know, they're thinking, oh, what if I just go in here and immediately get one shot? This thing could have sold for 3 divine orbs, and now I'm losing all of that because I just got absolutely fucked. Well, this should help out a lot. More changes to come in the future. On top of that, they actually made citadels spawn way closer to your starting area, and they have a light glowing out of them. So finding the citadels and farming the Arbiter of Ash fragments is going to be significantly easier. We're actually going to be able to target that. It's not just going to be wandering around in the fog hoping that you find something. And as these changes come for more bosses, it'll just continue to improve. So for number 3, we have a massive change to maps. Maps are basically given a specialty, so they're going to be able to specialize in certain things. So maybe this map has double the amount of chests, and that map has 50% more strong boxes and essences. So this is going to shake up the meta a lot for target farming. Say you're wanting essences, and just for example, maybe sand spit spawns the most essences. So, you know, if you're really wanting those and you're trying to target farm and your Atlas tree is fully specialized, now you have a goal you can pinpoint and target to be able to farm those. Is absolutely massive. We don't really know how massive this is until we have a chance to play with it and experiment. Probably expect Slippery Jim to have a spreadsheet on this saying what map has what mechanic in a day or two. We'll see. But overall, this is a huge win and might make some of these maps that suck ass suck a little bit less. So that's pretty good. And while we're talking about maps, just want to mention they also did finally increase the zoom for maps, so no longer do we have this tiny pathetic zoom rate, we can actually zoom out, so hooray. Next up, we have more map bosses and boss precursor tablets. Due to a bug, they weren't getting the intended 1 in 4 rate of map bosses spawning. This has been fixed, so we should have quite a bit more map bosses, as well as a precursor tablet added to be able to add map bosses, which is absolutely massive, and depending on how rare these are, these might be fairly valuable. Farming bosses is pretty nice. But because of these changes, we also saw a small nerf to some of the rates of like waystones from bosses, but overall this should just be a massive win. So for probably the biggest nerf of the patch, we have the Metagem change. Now this is a small line, it doesn't look like much if you're not really aware of what's going on here, but this is actually one of the biggest changes in the patch notes probably. Basically, this makes it so the skills inside of, like, say, cast on freeze, when cast on freeze, finally cast your spell, the spell's cast can no longer contribute to other cast on skills. So previously, if you had 4 casts on freeze, whenever they trigger, all the spells fly out, and then they freeze stuff, and then that would build up tons of energy, and then that would recast your cast on freeze, which would then send out a bunch of stuff, which would then freeze stuff, and then recast your cast on freeze, etc., etc. This is being used and abused by many different builds and causing sort of infinite loops basically that essentially are so bad it can tank their server sub. So these are changes that are not only nerfs but are changes that are needed to keep the servers a little bit stable. We can't have everybody in the game going around with infinite loops just causing their servers to just be thinking what the fuck is going on. So good change overall, just kind of, you know, early access changes that need to be done in my opinion. Next up, for the annoying on death effects, no, unfortunately they did not get removed, but they are trying to make improvements, see what we think of those. All the elemental effects like the ice explosions and the fire explosions monster dropped out, as well as the on death effects that they have. All of these have apparently been nerfed and had their visual effects improved, as well as a slight delay to how long they take to explode. So hopefully this can be good, but it's kind of an interesting change because, as it says, the delay before this is increased. A lot of the times people will go and wait to loot items because the explosions are delayed. I'm not sure exactly. This might just make this even worse. Maybe you're waiting and you think everything is safe and you go in and maybe you just end up exploding to this. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out, but hopefully the delay is enough to actually feel good. Overriding Ruins has now been added to the game. Huge win. Finally, we don't have to sit here and leave our sockets empty because we don't know exactly what res we might need soon. So, not much to say here. Massive win, and kind of should have just been like this since release, but at least now we have it. In the world of crafting, we actually got a 60% omen drop rate buff. This is pretty substantial. Omens basically for a lot of players before were basically non-existent, so 60% buff. We'll have to see how this really feels since they were so rare, but maybe this will make the price come down and, you know, not complete random crafting can slowly become available to, you know, your average player and not just your giga juicers. So huge win. Hopefully we continue to see changes like this that provide us some tools for crafting other than just slamming. For the in-game, they're also reducing a lot of screen clutter and visual effects and stuff, like the gigantic red explosion that comes out of the rare monsters you kill. General stuff like that. They were having issues with there being too many effects, so some effects would be invisible, as well as general problems like areas looking like you should be able to walk there but you can't. Making a lot of changes to this, gonna help out a lot. Not much else to say about it. Last on the list, we have a massive list of buffs to unique items. The entire list is in the patch notes. Most of these are just numerical changes, adding a small stat here or there. Nothing that's probably going to make any of these items game breaking or completely just bust the meta, but overall good changes, heading in the right direction. They are acknowledging that uniques are in a pretty bad state and a lot of them don't feel very good, so that's good. We'll have to see where these changes end up. One that I do want to point out and mention that stood out to me, the Painter Servant unique gloves. They removed the 5 to 10% fire, cold, and lightning resist on it, and they instead changed this to where it has 5 to 10% elemental damage gained of every element. fire, cold, and lightning. It's pretty crazy, honestly. Up to 30% damage as each element. This has other implications. I mean, you could build pure single element. These gloves will swap you into all three elements, meaning you get the effects of ignite, shock, and freeze. Anything else you can add to that, plus 30% damage on top of this. There's really good passive wheels, like the wheel over by Monk that gives you 30% elemental damage if you've ignited, 30% if you've shocked, and 30% if you froze. You could take all three of those, and these gloves would enable that, giving you huge spike. I don't know if this is going to be something people are using in their in-game builds. It definitely could enable a build, but at least for leveling, this could be absolutely massive. 30% additional damage as, plus enabling strong passives, and giving you additional defenses layers like freeze and stuff. So this is pretty big. I like these gloves, pretty cool, unique. If you want to look through the rest of the uniques, the list is available. But like I said, nothing too crazy. That's all I've got for you today. If this info helped you out, maybe give the video a like. Brand new content creator trying to get started. Maybe just go down in the comments, tell me how much I suck. Maybe my audio quality sucks. Whatever you want to do. See you guys.